Today's lesson is about plant adaptations for hot deserts. You can see here a beautiful picture of a desert with cacti, succulents and other types of plants that you will find in a desert. So what do we mean by a desert? Well, a desert has a very hot climate during the daytime. In the daytime, the temperatures can go above 40 degrees, but at nighttime, deserts are very cold and they can often go below freezing, 0 degrees. Deserts are very dry, which means they get very little rainfall, less than 250 millimeters in a year. So that's 25 centimeters, less than that in a year. Hot deserts have two distinct seasons. They have a summer, which is hot, between 35 and 40 on average. And then in the winter, it's still very hot, but it's 20 to 30 degrees. Soil in a desert is very thin, sandy, rocky, generally grey in colour. Desert soils are very dry. When it does rain, they soak up the water very quickly. The surface of the soil can appear crusty. This is due to the lack of rainfall. As it is so hot, water is drawn up to the surface of the soil by evaporation. As the water evaporates, salts are left behind on the surface of the soil. So in some deserts you get salt pans. Certain types of plant and animal can survive in these extreme environments. Hot deserts have distinct characteristics that allow certain species to thrive in such extreme environments. Plants and animals have developed adaptations which allow them to survive in hot and dry conditions. So in today's lesson, we're going to look at plant adaptations. So remember last lesson we looked at the camel and the fennel fox. Today we're going to look at plants and how they survive in the desert. Now there are 6 or 7 major deserts in the world, and there are lots of smaller deserts as well. So you've got the Atacama Desert in South America. You've got the Arizona Desert in North America, the Sahara, which is the most famous one in North Africa, the Arabian Desert, the Namib and Kalahari Deserts in southern Africa, the Australian Outback, and also the Gobi Desert in Central Asia. Now there are other deserts, smaller names, not so well known, but those are the main deserts in the world. So what do plants adapt? How do plants adapt to help them to live in the desert? Well, plants often adapt by having small leaves, and the reason for that is so they don't lose very much water through their leaves. So if they have small leaves, they have a small surface area and they lose less water. Okay, they lose less water. That's a key point with small leaves. Often the small leaves look like spines. The second thing is tap roots. Now these can be very, very long roots, 7 to 10 meters long, that reach deep underground, because sometimes even in the desert, deep underground, there is some moisture, some water deep underground in the desert. So if you have roots that can go right down, that can get that water. Spines. Some plants have spines instead of leaves. Cactuses have spines. Spines lose less water than leaves, so are very efficient in a hot climate. Also, spines are sharp and they stop animals from eating the plant. The fourth thing is waxy skin. Some leaves in the desert are thick and waxy, and that means they don't lose very much water. Also, water storage. Some plants, known as succulents, store water in their stems, leaves and roots. It makes the plants look quite sort of pudgy, but that's because they're full of water. Plants which store water in their leaves and stems also have a thick waxy skin, so they don't lose any water by transpiration. So quite a lot of information there. Perhaps you need to read through that. You can pause the video and just read through that yourselves. Okay, I'm going to move on. So here is a summary of plant adaptations. We've got cacti here. This is a big, tall cactus, and it's got spines on the surface. Now, there are 6 reasons, actually, why plants have spines in the desert, and we'll look at that in the next slide. You've got a thick, waxy skin, and that stops the water from evaporating, right? Otherwise, if you didn't have that, the water would evaporate up into the air like this, and the plant would wither. Also, if you look at these are very sort of thick bodies, aren't they? They're thick stems, and that's because they store water. And they all have waxy skin. Okay, some plants have these long roots that go right down deep under the ground. These are called tap roots, and they go down to the water level deep under the sand or the rock. So here we have a cactus. Now, the plural of cactus is cacti. And there are 6 main reasons why cacti have spines. Number 1, they protect the plant from predators. They help provide shade. That's number 2. So number 1 was they protect. Number 2, they provide some shade, believe it or not. Number 3, they help the plant to regulate its temperature. Number 4, they reduce water loss. And number 5, they help the plant to spread out. And number 6, they can help the plant to reproduce as well. So 6 reasons there, which you should try and memorize. Succulents are these plants which have the kind of pudgy stems, thick leaves, and that's because they're storing lots of water in their fleshy leaves. They're called succulents because they are succulent, and some animals eat them, and they're very laden with moisture and water. And we also mentioned tap roots, and these are plants which have very, very deep roots deep under the ground to find the water sources under the ground. Here is a summary. 5 things about desert plants. Some plants have horizontal root systems below the surface. Some plants have long tap roots, 7 to 10 meters deep to reach the groundwater. So that was number 1. That's number 2. Number 3, some leaves or spines, glossy and waxy leaves, all reduce water loss. 4, seeds can stay dormant for years but can germinate quickly when it rains. And 5, some plants store water in their roots, stems, and leaves or fruit. These are called succulents. So this is it's a quick run through. You might want to watch this video again just to get the main points. Once you've watched the video and you're happy that you understand everything in it, there is a mini quiz on its learning, which has got 10 questions for you to answer about plant adaptation. So thank you for listening. Good luck with the quiz.